Like you, I have played Monster Hunter Wilds since day one and have finished the game. Myself, I am a Monster Hunter veteran. I've played nearly every Western release as well as Frontier. This channel that you are watching the video from is a new channel for gameplay videos like this, so it doesn't have a lot of subscribers, though my original channel is for reviews. I reviewed Monster Hunter Wilds at a 4 out of 5. I really liked this game, though I do had two major concerns. One of them was that the game was just way too easy, even in high rank, let alone low rank. I've attributed the ease of this game to several factors: the secret mount and all of its quality of life, focus shots, easy made items in low rank, the fluidity of the animations, and so much more. I was defeating most monsters in 5 minutes or less with current progression gear, when in other games it would take me anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes depending on the game and different factors. So I thought to myself, what if I remove all of the quality of life? Now, I won't say 100% all, as this is not a hardcore challenge in terms of the definition that it has turned into, like one life mode, no armor. I'm not completely going at 0% health, more like 5% health. I am deeming this the survivalist challenge. I will be making a new character for this challenge, and we'll go over the rules momentarily. But first, I wish to give you a brief story that motivated me for this challenge. I will try to be quick, but the story is that back in Monster Hunter Tri Ultimate, the urgent quest to unlock high rank was a purple Ludroth hunt, and they are very poisonous. I figured no issue, I'll bring plenty of potions, items to even make more potions, as well as plenty of antidote. Now, in the fight, the poison he inflicted was constant. It got to the point that I used up all of my antidotes, and I had to heal through most of the poison. I ended up fainting. No problem, I'll make more mega potions with the normal potions and honey that I brought. Well, I ended up using all of them to heal through the poison, and I was out of antidote, out of potions, so I fainted again. So what am I to do? I fainted twice, I am completely out of potions and antidotes, as well as every other item. I only have 15 minutes left for my quest, so I went survival mode. I ran around the map collecting every herb, honey, antidote herb I could find. I even grabbed whetstones from the river, because remember, whetstones were an item back then, not a infinite use item now. I scrambled together as much as I could from gathering and crafting out in the field, and I saw that I was losing time, so I went in and I fought again, trying to conserve what little I had. I see the 5-minute mark left, the red flashing at the minimap. I continue fighting, my adrenaline is high, and finally I defeated the Ludroth with 10 seconds left on the quest. This is my most memorable quest of any Monster Hunter game that I have ever played, because of the survival mode I had to go through to defeat a tough foe. With that being said, now you have the survivalist mindset that I went through. I am now going to go through the rules of this challenge based on that survivalist mentality. For one, I am not allowed to use the secret mount or any of its quality of life at all, unless it is absolutely mandatory, like to reach an area that is not traversable on foot, or if it's one of the automatic writing quests as part of the story. I will only use weapons that I am not experienced with, and whatever weapon I choose, it must not have elemental damage nor status effects, and since I am experienced with dual swords and insect glaive, they are off the list. Now, I'm not going to go completely naked.
We best find you some clothes. You can't go walking through Mordor and not wear your skin.
But I don't want to wear monster armor, so I am only going to wear bone armor, which is still going to debuff me as it has naturally low defense score. I will not be using charms as well. I will turn off all HUD items except for health bar and stamina bar, but that means no minimap. I can't look at my items at the bottom screen. I will not be able to see the monster's health pulse. I will also be turning off all automatic crafting. Anything I obtain, I must craft or gather it myself. The only exception are barrels and trap tools, as you cannot craft those naturally, and they are useless by themselves, so you're using them as a resource to craft other items, which will be acceptable. I will not be using the SOS system. I am doing this completely solo. And by solo, I mean no palico. Again, completely solo. I do not want the cat to help me heal or take aggro off, as it is one of the minor quality of life systems that make the monsters easier. I will be allowed to eat, as there is no nutrients in this game, at least not from what I saw, but I will only use ration food, which will not give me any buffs and will only last 30 minutes instead of 50. I will be allowed to use the environment, as it makes sense for a survivalist to use their surroundings. I can use camps, but not in the middle of quests, only when I'm in free roam mode. And there will be no fast traveling. I will walk everywhere. Now, I will remind you of these as needed in the video, but for now, let's finally get started. Now, looking through the weapons list, I decided to go with the bow. I have never really used the bow. I think I may have tried it like for 5 minutes in Monster Hunter Tri back in the day, and I hated it, so I never went back. So I thought this would be a good weapon to choose from, as I have like 0 experience using it. I did a little bit of a practice run just there with the training dummy, but then I had to hop on the secret to get to the next area. Now, I know I said I was not going to use the secret, however, this is one of the few quests where it's mandatory to use the secret. And again, with the mandatory nature of some of the quests using the secret, that's going to have to be the exception. But once I am able to hop off of it, I will stay off as long as possible. Now then, we're going to head to the first area where we're going to fight the first boss, the Chupacabra. With this still being very early in the game, I am not able to turn off the palico just yet. I will be able to turn him off before the next fight though. For now, I'm just going to leave it be and continue to fight the Chupacabra, as I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm kind of flailing around. I'm not quite used to the bow, so I'm still figuring out its mechanics. And no, I don't read the tutorial, so a lot of the time when it's telling me to do something, I don't do it, and you'll find out that I don't realize that I have a ton of different abilities with the bow until way later, because that's just how I play. Anyway, we continue on with the Chupacabra. His special ability is that he licks his arms in order to attach rocks to it, which supposedly makes him stronger, or at least gives him a better defense against your attacks. I don't really notice a difference, and he kind of attacks slow with very low range of attacks, so he's very easy to fight, even in this low-ranked gear and terrible weapon. The red glowing on his arm there is a wound from the wound system, and as well as the focus system. Now, the focus system is kind of integrated into aiming with the bow, so you're going to see a lot of the red glowing. However, I am not going to be using the focus shots, as that's one of the ways of making this fight a lot easier. So, no focus shots. However, just naturally aiming at the wound I think will be acceptable, as it's not going to pop right away the moment you hit it. It's going to take some time, and at times, fighting these monsters, I don't even break the wound. But anyway, now it's time for our first chase. I am not jumping on the secret, and I will be following completely on foot. Luckily, he does not go far, but as you'll see later on, a lot of the creatures will travel quite the distance, or they'll fly, or in the case of the new Udra, will slip through the wall, so it's going to be a lot harder to follow them later on, but I managed to figure it out, at least the best I can. Using a charge shot, I managed to pop a couple of the wounds. Not all of them, but some of them, and more of them even grew from that. So that's going to be definitely my power play move, but it costs several seconds in order to cast it, so it's going to have to be perfectly timed. The bow is somewhat mobile, and while you do have to be at range in order to fight it, you cannot be too far away, which kind of forces you to be up close next to the monster. With smaller monsters like this, it's a lot easier, though as you get further on into the larger monsters, it'll feel like you're not that far away, but you'll actually be out of range. It's kind of interesting how it works, and sometimes I don't like it, but for now it's gonna be fine. You'll notice that a lot of creatures have unique weak spots, like the Chupacabra's tongue. You'll see here in a second that even though I don't hit it that often, it glows red. There are other creatures like this that they'll have a weak spot open at a certain time, and it'll glow red to show you that it's the weak spot. Kind of like a Zelda boss with a big eye. One of the arguments that the community makes of not having health bars for the monsters is that you'll be able to tell the monster's mood and his weakness based on how they react, such as them limping, them panting, and so on. As you see there, the Chupacabra is drooling out of its mouth, which means it is tired. When they are tired, they take a lot more damage, and they will attack a lot slower, more sluggish, and with less power. And just as you saw earlier with his tongue sticking out and it being exposed, it allowed me to get in some attacks. So that is one of the reasons why I am turning off all of the HUD. I am completely going off of the monster's emotions to determine how the fight is going. Though it doesn't take long for me to finally take out the first boss of the game, the Chupacabra. Now what I'm going to be doing is at the end of each hunt, I will be showing you the time it takes to kill each one, with the amount of restrictions that I have. The Chupacabra takes me under 5 minutes to kill, but I am also in current level gear. This is what I'm supposed to be wearing while fighting him, so he is still gonna be very easy. But as the monsters get harder and harder, and my gear pretty much relatively stays the same, you will notice a significant spike in the amount of time it takes to kill them, especially as they travel farther, hit harder, have more defense, and so on. Now I finally have access to the town, but I do not have access to my tent just yet. I'm going to want to go into my tent in order to turn off the palico, as well as delete all of the items in my item box, as this game, for whatever reason, starts you off with a ton of starter items. I am going to be deleting all of it in order to gather and craft all of my own equipment. But first, I'm going to have to talk to everyone in the town in order to get to that step. I talked to Gemma and the other characters. Now Gemma I will be using in order to make the bone gear, as well as making weapons that are, again, non-elemental and non-status effect. I want to make the bone gear right away, but I am not able to as I need more materials. I am only able to make the legs right now, which will show off those amazing thighs. I did not skip leg day. Over the next several minutes, I speed through all of the quest requirements in order to unlock the tent. Once I unlock the tent, I go in there and I turn off the palico by setting him to standby. When he is in standby mode, he will basically not help you during any of the hunts. However, he will be with me during free roam, which I wish I could turn that off, as I believe you could in older games, but for now I'm gonna have to just let it slide as there's nothing I can do about it. So it was time to head on to the next area. I skipped over the story segment since we've already seen it all before, and I get to the part where you have to defeat the bugs. Now, there is a spread shot ability for the bow. I use this for the bugs as it was the easiest way of taking them all on at once, though it is not the best attack to use during a normal fight, though it kind of sucks that these herbivores kept getting in the way of all of my attacks. Kind of annoying, but I managed to get rid of them in a few minutes. This was also the part of the game that I realized that I was in an open lobby, and I didn't actually choose to be in an open lobby, it just kind of put me in one. I noticed it because I started getting all these random spamming emotes in the chat, and I was like, wait, what is this? So that reminded me, I'm gonna have to turn this into solo online mode when I get back to town. On that note, are these pre-made emotes that are in the chat? Because a lot of them have a lot of, innuendos, so I'm just wondering if that's actually part of the game or if that's what somebody made. Either way, that's going to be turned off real soon here. But first, it's time to upgrade my weapon. For now, I'm going to be using the iron bow, as the iron and the bone are really the only options to use, as they don't have any elemental or status effects. It was now time for the second quest, which is going to be the fire chicken. Now, because I can't use the secret mount, I hop down and start running to where the quest icon tells me to go. I have more to say on that in a minute, but first, as you see, I grab a wiggly litchi. That gives me a stamina boost, as well as make it so my stamina drainage is lowered for a significant amount of time. Which reminds me, I'm going to have to craft some energy potions later. But now it was time to fight Cumitris. He is one of the easier monsters of this game, but I do like him for an intro monster. I actually wish he was the first one besides Chupacabra, and that Chupacabra was buffed a little bit more. Cumitris is a brute wyvern that pretty much does a lot of the abilities that a brute wyvern would do, like trying to bite you, trying to tail swipe you, but with a little bit of a twist. His tail swipe, I don't really know what his tail is made out of, but it causes a lot of fire to explode out of it. So it's probably some sort of flint, if I had to guess. I'm not too sure. But all in all, he is a very fun fight for an intro monster. By the way, as you saw me running just there, you saw the little compy creatures that were running past me as I was chasing after the Cumitris. There was a black one among them. That's actually one of the rare pets of the game. On my main character, I actually went around and caught nearly every single pet in the game. I am only missing 2 of them, but by doing that, it actually prepared me for taking on this challenge, as I was going around and exploring all of the different biomes during different seasons, as well as during the different day and night cycle eras. But back to the fight. As you see, I'm now fighting on the dunes. The dunes for a lot of people are kind of a pain in the ass to fight on, but it actually comes in handy not only during this fight, but as you'll see during the Balahara fight later on. You can use the dunes almost like a shield against the enemy's attacks. It's actually very useful to use them, and sometimes the creatures can actually get stuck on the dunes, which will give you an opportunity to attack, which would be an absolute godsend because, as you notice, I no longer have the Palico. He is now on standby, so unlike the Chotacabra, I am fighting this completely by myself. Nothing to grab aggro at all. So using the dunes, using this vine trap, which is part of the environment, is very beneficial to me, which takes a lot of the heat off of me, allowing me to get in some power shots like this right here, which will completely blow off the tail of the Cumitris. Boom, there it goes. So yeah, I find the Cumitris also to be a little bit too easy, but that's to be expected since he is a low-leveled monster. Only a few more strikes and a power shot, and the Cumitris goes down. Again, not that bad. It takes me about 10 minutes to kill this Cumitris, though I equate the majority of that from chasing after it between each of the areas. I have not carded once yet, but if I do ever cart, I will make sure to keep a tally to show you how many times I do cart during this challenge. But after the Cumitris is hunted, I now finally unlock the open world. Now, while it does want me to go to the forest, I don't want to go to the forest just yet. I don't have any supplies. I need potions, I need herbs, I need everything I can get. So I run around the Windward Plains, grabbing anything I can find. I do have to stop a couple of times in order to drop it off, as I do fill up my bags frequently. I'm going to be fast forwarding a lot of the gathering just to show you that I am doing this without using the secret mount. I am running everywhere, but I don't want to let you sit there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours watching me run around everywhere. So a lot of the segments that are going to be like that, I will be fast forwarding through, but I will be showing you this part where I'm gathering ore, because I do need to gather ore in order to upgrade my stuff. I also stop by and I gather as many bones as I can in order to make the rest of the bone armor. Something that I have noticed with low rank is that the materials required to make all of the armors, you need very little of it. Like, even if it's the monsters, or if it's the bone armor, or the iron armor, you need like 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces per item in order to make any of the low rank sets. So you only need to kill a monster like once or twice in order to make the full set, and when it comes to the bone armor, I only gather like a couple of bones, and I'm able to make the full set. But that's fine, because I'm just gonna be making the bone set and staying with that with the rest of the challenge anyway, so it's completely fine for me. Now, as you saw there, I hit an obstacle where I could not figure out how to get back to the town. I looked at the map and it looked like every single path you needed to use the secret in order to reach the town. Though, upon closer inspection, I noticed that there's a path in the cave that will lead up to the cliffs on foot to reach the village. So, while it did take a lot longer than using the secret mount, I do show you there that I took the entire path on foot in order to make it back to the village. No secret on my watch. Anyway, now it was time to make the full bone set. I go back to Gemma and I craft it, as well as the upgraded bone bow. Now then, I had completely forgotten to delete all of the items out of my item box, as I didn't really go in there prior to that. I put the cat on standby and then just continued on. So this is where you're watching me delete everything. I am also, to a degree, deleting almost everything that I had gathered, with the exception of some things that I know I had gathered, like the honey and the ivy and stuff like that. But all of the potions deleted, all of the rations deleted, all of the ammo deleted. Basically, everything that I know that I did not gather is going to be gone. Anything that I will use or will have should be crafted or gathered by me. Now, I will be heading to the forest next, but on the way there, I decided to stop and hunt a couple of herbivores in order to start gathering some raw meat so I could start cooking. I definitely love the feel of wearing the bone armor, using a bow, and hunting herbivores out in the wild. Definitely primitive and fits with the survival theme that I'm trying to go for. Noticing the trees behind the mountains there, I realized that I am close to the forest, so I decided to follow them where I find the next area where I'm supposed to be for the story mode quest. Now, this is a part where they're gonna force me onto the secret. It's an auto walk quest, which is quite frequent in the story mode. I just kind of let it do its thing on rails, and I don't really consider these segments part of the challenge mode, as there's nothing I can really do about it. Now here's something that's going to be really funny, and unfortunately it happens all too often, but between the various zones, or biomes rather, it just completely stops loading in, or it just loads in so slow that I ended up hitting an invisible wall while it's loading in the forest and deloading the desert. So, while it is kind of funny, again, this is going to be a little bit more frequent than usual because I will be walking everywhere and not fast traveling. So yeah, I better get used to this. I do eventually make it to the town, but I don't have the forest in free roam yet. I have to do the first couple of quests in order to unlock it. So I go ahead with the next story quest, which luckily let me walk to the next area without using the secret. But then, as I skipped the cutscene, it took a while to load in Lalabarina. I'm just like, wait, where is she? I kind of walked around like, where did she go? But then she spawned in and it said begin quest, so now we can actually start. While Lalabarina is not the first spider ever introduced into Monster Hunter, it is definitely the most unique, using its abdomen like a flower petal. It can shoot little fibers from its backside that can paralyze you. Now, it's not instant, it's actually a build-up. You'll notice at the top of the health bar that there's a little bit of a build-up bar with the paralysis symbol, and the higher it gets, the closer you are to being paralyzed. But it can also be added onto from her various attacks, like her stinger, which can also paralyze you. For the longest time, I thought that the little spins that she does, almost like a ballerina spin, were attacks that would attack you if you were nearby, but that's not the case, as I've been close to her several times and they don't do any damage. They're just a fun little quirky way that it moves. Now, something that you saw me do just now was a perfect dodge, where I glow blue and am able to get out of the way on time. Now, I'm not too sure what that entails in terms of being a bow user. With dual swords, if you do a perfect dodge, you unlock a mode that's a lot more elusive, and you can do swirl attacks as you dodge out of the way. It's a neat little thing for dual sword users since they cannot do the perfect block like the lance or the greatsword can. With the bow, other than just getting out of the way on time, I'm not exactly sure what it does. In older games, there were a ton of different smaller monsters within the maps that would attack you while you are attacking the larger monster. They were served more like annoyances, if anything. Now, there are creatures like these little alligator dudes that will do the kind of the same thing in this game, though you can mostly ignore them, as the times that they attack, they're so slow, they don't really ever hit me. Now, with Lalabarina, as you see there, I mentioned before that you can determine the creature's mood based on how they act. I just did a lot of damage to her, and she kind of stumbled because she was tired. With that, she tried running away, but she ran into Doshaguma, who was able to keep her distracted long enough for me to get some good hits in. Watching them fight in a turf war is absolutely amazing, especially with how brutal the Doshaguma is, as you watch him throw her off and completely tear at her, but she manages to get away by paralyzing him. Now, I don't want to aggro him and fight him at the same time, so while he's paralyzed, I quickly go behind him and give chase after the Lalabarina. Another way to know that the monster is getting low on health is with how many parts that you manage to break off. With Lalabarina, it's her flower. Yes, I am popping the flower, or whatever term is you want to use. But yeah, I destroy it, and you can see now that it is all ragged and completely torn open, which means she is getting very close to dying. It takes me one good charge shot and I finally take her down. Now she takes about 12 minutes to hunt down. Again, I'm going to equate most of that to the time it takes to chase her down between the areas, but all in all, it was a good fight. Now that I've gotten to this part in the story, I am able to freely explore the forest biome. I'm still a lot more familiar with the desert biome for whatever reason. The forest biome still kind of confuses me as there's multiple rivers, so sometimes I'll think I'm in one river when really I'm in the other one, so I get quite confused on if I'm on the right side or the left side without the map. Sometimes I do have to pull up the map, but it's okay. Anyway, I go around and I collect as much as I can, and eventually I make my way up the river to a split. I can go right or I can go left. I decide to go left. Though it does bring me to a dead end, it is quite a beautiful scene with several waterfalls cascading down. Now, you can't go down below, it's an area that's not accessible, but it's still really pretty, and it kind of reminds me of the flooded forest map back in Monster Hunter Tri. With the reintroduction of the Leviathan back into Monster Hunter, there are a lot of smaller creatures that are also Leviathans, kind of like Ludroths from also Monster Hunter Tri. These guys, I'm not quite sure what they're called, they're not really that important teleport and they just kind of swim around half the time, I decided to take on a whole pack of them that were swimming between the waterfalls using the spread shot. Further up the waterfall, I found a dry area with some bugs. At first I didn't know what they were. Turns out they're Vespoid that are just kind of nesting on the ground. I don't really ever see them nesting on the ground, I always see them flying around, so it kind of surprised me. And it's kind of fun to pop them because they die in one hit. Continuing down, I find a crevice and I'm like, ooh, this is interesting, what's down here? Turns out that leads into the oil fields and I cannot access that just yet, so it turns me around. After I got my fill of gathering and crafting, I go ahead on the Jungle Cruise auto walk quest in order to unlock the Congalala. The Congalala is a returning monster from the older games. I think it was introduced in Monster Hunter DOS or something like that, and I've also fought him in Monster Hunter Frontier. He is overall easy, but what you need to do is watch out for his breath attack. He can sometimes pick up mushrooms, and depending on what mushroom he eats, that will give him a certain power. If it's a para mushroom, he can breathe paralytic breath. If it's a toxic mushroom, he can spread out poisonous clouds. And if it's a red mushroom, he can breathe out fire. The Congalala is one of the few creatures that will have many variants of them. Really, it's the Conga that is the creature itself, while the Congalala is the alpha. It is the same for many other creatures like the Jagras from Monster Hunter World, or the Jaggi from Monster Hunter Tri, and even the Velocidrome and the Velociprey from the first Monster Hunter. Utilizing the environment, I set off the flash bugs to stun the Congalala. You can see the red wounds there on the Congalala. I am not allowed to use the focus system as per the rules of my challenge, but I can still just aim for them naturally. So that's what I try to do, using some power shots to get some good attacks in. With the power of editing, I'm going to speed up this next segment here just to show you that I did fight the monster per the rules of the challenge, but so you don't have to sit through the entire thing. I do try to cut and edit where I can, but I also don't want to cut too much so I'm not skipping around and you're not being able to see the challenge in action. But finally the monster goes down and it takes me just under 10 minutes to defeat it. Not too bad. Once I get back to the base camp, I deposit all of the gathered materials that I had found, I craft some more, and then I go to the smithy to see if I can upgrade anything. While I can upgrade my bow right now, it requires monster fluid, which is from a Lullabarina. It seems that I didn't get one the last time I hunted one, so I'm gonna have to hunt her again. I'll have to wait on that as I decided to do the next story mission, which is another one that mandatorily puts me on the secret mount. It is to go rescue one of the NPCs from the Balahara. Now, since I played my main playthrough with dual swords, you could swipe the dual swords while on the mount. It does a quick like 1-2 slash, so it's not really optimal for fighting while mounted back, but using a bow is actually kind of, you get to shoot from mounted back like a Mongol. But anyway, now it was time to hunt the Balahara, and just to let you know, this, up until this point, was the hardest monster that I had faced because of his water blight. I really need stamina in order to not only aim and shoot, but also to dodge out of the way, which is kind of a requirement when I am doing this all by myself and without a cat to help take aggro. So the water blight, making it so my stamina regen is so slow, it makes this fight almost unbearable. Though when I first start off, it starts off pretty much okay. I dodge out of his attacks, I get in some good hits to his mouth, which is his weak spot, and it seemed to be generally doing okay until he spat at me and I got my first dose of water blight. Oh, and this is when I also found out that my food buff had worn out. Remember, I am only eating rations and not a full meal, which means it only lasts 30 minutes. At this point in time, that's basically 2 hunts worth unless I go gathering in between the quests, which pretty much eats up the rest of the time. And later on, as the fights get longer, it pretty much only lasts 1 fight, 1.5 fights. This is also when I realized I really need to keep some null berries on me in order to get rid of these status effects. Well, it's too late now. I'm not able to use the campsite during the middle of a quest, so it's gonna have to be after I kill the Balahara if I manage to do it. All I can do is keep trucking on and hope and pray that I manage to take this out on time. Though it doesn't help that with the water blight, it makes it so it's harder to dodge, which means I get hit again, which can sometimes reapply the water blight, or it just, does a lot of damage to me. I do have potions, so I am able to heal it back up, but because my health is cut in half without the food buff, getting one hit in can be deadly. though this is where the Balahara moves to the dunes. Now the dunes, as I showed you with the fire chicken, is actually very useful for shielding against various attacks. Now before I re-engage, I go into my crafting menu to see if I can make anything. Unfortunately, I don't really have much on me as I had been putting everything I had gathered away in the box, so I don't have anything spare to use and craft on hand. This is when I decided I'm going to be keeping not only potions, but honey and herbs on me at the same time in order to craft more mega potions. This is something that I actually normally do in just normal gameplay of all the Monster Hunters I've ever done. I always keep 10 mega potions, 10 honey, and 10 potions so I can make more mega potions if I ever need to. During my playthrough of the original character in Monster Hunter Wilds, I have not yet needed to do that, and I've only had to do that a couple of times in Monster Hunter World, but it looks like I'm definitely going to need it for this playthrough. One of the Balahara's special abilities is that he can climb up on certain surfaces. Now, some of them you are able to collapse on top of him. This one doesn't really seem to have a collapsible access point. Instead, there is a wedge beetle that you can latch onto and swing up and try to mount onto the monster. Now, I don't know if bows can mount a monster. I have not been successful in that just yet, but if you are able to successfully mount it, it will have him fall from the surface. So remember about 20 minutes ago in this video where I said I didn't really read the tutorial during the Chotacabra fight? Yeah, so this is when I found out I can send out like homing arrows. I didn't even know that was a thing. I just kind of hit buttons randomly and saw that it did that. It basically latches onto the monster and you can kind of see like sparks coming out of it. During that time, while it's attached, any arrows that you send would go right to that area. So it's kind of like a homing beacon for your arrows, and after a short amount of time has passes, it will explode and do damage. I don't know how much damage because I have the damage numbers turned off, so I can't really say if that's a good move or not. I don't use it as often, but I do occasionally, depending on the monster and where I need to hit it. As he hits me right here, I try to get away from him by using the sand dunes, but the water blight makes it so my stamina just runs out so fast, meaning I was a sitting duck for him to grab onto me while he was jumping in and out of the sand. I could not re-engage just yet as I still had water blight and I was low health. I continued to use the sand dunes as a way of blocking his attacks, which eventually worked out as I managed to get just far enough away to recover my stamina. Once the water blight had gone away, I was able to re-engage. Up until this point, this is probably the longest fight I had, but eventually the Balahara will return to his den where the final showdown will commence. Now, one of the things that the Balahara does is, as I said before, will climb up on the rock, but unlike the last one where you grab onto a wedge beetle and hope to mount it, this one you can collapse. Now, the Balahara doesn't recognize that I'm there just yet, and I don't know if the bow can do a sneak attack or not. I just fired it like normal. Once he realized I was there, he decides to climb up onto the rock. I wait for him to get into the right position before I collapse the rock on top of him. Something that I've noticed with Monster Hunter Wilds is that most of the time, now this is not all of the time, but most of the time, a lot of the creatures will return back to their base before they start limping and will get to the point of capture while they are in their den. So sometimes you can defeat a monster and not see them limp once, which makes it a little bit harder to capture them, especially when you don't have the mini-map to tell you that they are ready for capture, as the mini-map will have a little skull icon over them, or the cat would tell you when it's ready to capture. But it's fine, I don't really need to capture the Balahara, and I kill him with 18 minutes 48 seconds. As I said, this is probably the longest fight so far, but it's only gonna get harder from here. Now it was time for the next quest, which it throws you right into. You don't have any time to recover or get new items or even eat. So yeah, this next one I am gonna be doing without food buffs and without gathering new healing items. It is what it is. So after this mandatory secret part where I have to knock the rocks on top of them, I eventually have to go out into the field. Now the part in the field where you're supposed to disperse them, I thought you had to use a large dung pod in order to disperse them and then start the fight. And it turns out I was wrong. You're supposed to hit the Doshiguma while you're on mounted back. And yes, I did try to get off of the mount at this point in time. It does not let you. This part is mandatory to ride the secret. Once you get the attention of the Alpha Doshiguma, then he will commence to chase you where it goes on rails to the next area. This is probably one of the cooler cutscenes, which is why it was featured in the trailer of the game, where all of the Doshiguma are being dragged into this sand pit by the Balahara. Of course, the Alpha emerges out, and now you have to fight him. He hits pretty hard, but he is slow, so you are able to dodge out of the way on time. But if you are too slow, like I was there, he does pack a punch. And now again, I'm gonna have to be extra careful to not get hit because I don't have any food buffs. So my health is cut in half, and my stamina is a little bit higher because I did eat a ration, but it was starting to wear out. Doshiguma doesn't really have anything special about him. He's basically a giant bear creature, and he's gonna like swipe and paw at you and try to bite you, though there are times that he can do something special like dragging his mouth across the ground, kind of like how a Devil Joe would. But eventually I chase him to the next area where the Balahara was sitting there. They decided to duke it out and not even pay attention to me, which allowed me to get in some free hits. Just as before when we saw the Doshiguma fighting the Lolabarina, the Doshiguma is an absolute unit and destroys the Balahara. Eventually the Balahara leaves the area, leaving me and Doshiguma to fight it out in the sand dunes. Now again, I love the sand dunes because I can hide behind them in order to block attacks, so I try to utilize that here, as well as utilizing the environment, as I do manage to get him stuck a couple of times on the sand dunes, and I use these great thunder bugs in order to stun him, kind of like a shock trap, so that allowed me to get some more free hits in. And with that big shiny red wound on his face, no better time than to use a power shot. Though this is where my luck is starting to run out, as it made him so angry, he came at me with the rage of 1,000 suns, coming at me, jumping at me, and he did something that I completely forgot he could do. He slammed his paws down and completely ruptured the ground underneath me, which one-shot me. I was like, whoa, what just happened? I did not expect that to be the outcome, especially because I thought I was out of the way of the attack. I think it may have clipped me, or I could have been just under it and not paid attention. Regardless, that I think is my very first cart. So we're gonna go ahead and mark that into the corner right there, as I have one cart so far on this challenge. But we are not over just yet. I have to rush back and chase the Doshiguma. As I get back, I try to do a power shot while he was not paying attention, but I missed as he started to run away. So I went to get chase, only to then be Han Solo'd as he jumped right back up off the cliff and scared the crap out of me. I had to quickly get distance, so I ran away. Oh, how those tables turned. This time, I am more aware of his abilities, so as he tries to do the same ability that wiped me the first time, I managed to dodge out of the way. It takes roughly about 5 or so more minutes of me basically going back and forth, chasing him, shooting him with arrows when I am able to, until eventually he gets tired enough that I am able to get in some good hits without him fighting back, and that's all I needed to finally end this fight. Now, unfortunately, I accidentally edited out the timestamp of how long it took me to kill him, but if I remember correctly, I think it was about 10 to 15 minutes roughly. I don't quite remember, but anyway, it was time to head now to the next quest. I do have to do another mandatory secret autopath thing to Uthduna, who's going to be the next target of our challenge. Now, while my cat is sitting out, as part of the story mode, Olivia is going to be joining me, so there's not really much I can do about that. It will make this fight a little bit easier, but there's nothing really I can do. But what will make this challenge much harder is the fact that Uthduna uses the riverways in order to travel. But first, Uthduna has a lot of ranging attacks, mostly using her body weight to try to slam on top of you, body slam you, or hitting against the water to push waves into you. They are very slow and easy to dodge, but if you do manage to get hit by one of her attacks, they will hurt you a lot, which is one of the problems of trying to play this level solo, though it is kind of nice that Olivia is here to help take some of that off of me. All of the other monsters up until now have just walked from one area to the next, and I could follow right behind them. Uthduna will go into the river and travel away, sometimes all the way to the other side of the map. And remember, I am doing this on foot, so I will have to chase after her. At first, it looks like they're just going to go to the next area, so I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I just kind of follow alongside the river until I hit a roadblock. It is a intraversable area that only the secret could go through. Now, I did make an exception that if it was an area that only the secret could reach, I would use it just to traverse that one spot. However, looking at the map, I noticed that there was another way around, so I will not be able to use that excuse and will have to travel on foot. As I hook around the corner, I noticed that it was a dead end. This was the area that I had been to before when I was exploring. Though looking again, there was a cliff onto the side that I was able to climb up on and finally reach Uthuna. I saw that there was a clog up in the waterfall, and she was right underneath it, so I pulled it and let the water loose, which did a ton of damage to Uthuna, but as well as dragged me along with it. I used this moment while she was stunned to get in some good aimed shots, which destroyed a couple of the wounds and did some major damage. Once she recovers, she tries to get in a couple of hits at me because she is very angry that I did that. Though after those few hits, she does go to the next area by climbing up the waterfall. Now this is going to be the part where I will have to use the secret mount. I try several times to try to climb the waterfall myself, as there is an area that looks like it could be climbed. They're just roots and vines, which normally in any other Monster Hunter game you would have been able to climb it, but unfortunately you cannot in this game, and you will have to use the secret mount in order to climb up, and I did not see any other way around. And then jump off. There we go. Oh, come on, those are vines. I should be able to climb those. I give in, and I use the secret mount to climb up just this one segment of the wall. Once I do manage to get to the top, I jump off the secret to run the rest of the way. It is kind of interesting how you cannot climb vines even though you could in any other game, but you could walk on the walkways like this. Regardless, once I jump off, I am able to rejoin Olivia in the battle, though Olivia managed to wait for me this time instead of going ahead and fighting by herself. After several more minutes of fighting Uthuna, she jumps into the water. I figured she was going to run away again, only this was one of her more massive attacks. I had the idea of maybe meeting her before she jumped out and placing a bomb so she would land on it, but the funny thing is that the wave is what killed me and not her. I was like, wait, she didn't even touch me, she was still jumping out of the water when I carted, so yeah, that was kind of funny. But anyway, luckily there was a camp up top right above we were fighting, so all I had to do was jump off and I could rejoin the fight. Now, I did cart once, and I don't have a food buff anymore, so I do have to be extra careful while fighting her. After a few more minutes, I finally down Uthuna, and the entire fight took me about 15 minutes with only one cart. That means we are up to 2 for the challenge, but that's not too bad considering I'm now pretty much halfway done with low rank. Once I head back to the camp, I put away all my supplies, and I eat ration food. Again, I am not going to be using any food buffs, only ration food as it only gives me enhanced stamina and enhanced health, for only 30 minutes. We do another on-rails trip to the oil well, where we finally get to do the next quest. This time, I am able to run to the monster instead of being on rails. He is a little bit farther down, but it's fine. I get there within a few minutes, and now it is time to hunt Rompopolo. Rompopolo, I think, is probably my second to least favorite monster. He is just so goddamn ugly looking. And it's also kind of weird that Alma talks about it as if this was a well-known monster. Bitch, we've never seen this monster before. This is new to the series. Rompopolo attacks are kind of weird, so he inflates himself with gas, and then he can release that gas either through his mouth like he did there, or he can push it through the stinger on his tail. He can put it into the ground and have it explode out under the oil. He is known for doing AoE attacks, though they do give you enough time to get out of the way, so it is really simple to avoid his attacks. As he runs to the next area, he finds an Arjark again, I think that's how you say it, and they duke it out. Now, I'm pretty sure they are giving each other some good damage numbers, but I can't confirm that because I turned off the damage numbers for this challenge. But I let them fight for a little while, and then I use that moment to attack while the Rompopolo is down. Though, after that, he runs off to the next area to avoid the Arjark again, which I pursue. I find a wedge beetle, and I try and fail to mount the creature. I have yet and will never pretty much mount a creature while using the bow. It's kind of hard if you ask me. If I was on my dual blades or my insight glaive, I could hop on them with pretty much any attack that I jump into the air. It's really easy for me to do so. So after that failed attempt, I just go ahead and just fight him like normal. I see a bunch of wounds which were probably left on him from the Arjarkican, and I use that to my advantage to try to deal in some extra damage, though his gas attacks managed to get some good hits on me as I was a little bit too slow to dodge out of the way. Luckily I didn't get any poison debuffs, but a quick mega potion and I was back to fighting him. After knocking him down, I noticed that I managed to actually deflate his tail. When you deflate him, he looks really sad and funny looking. I almost feel bad for him, almost, because now it was time to finish the fight. I chase him down to the final area where I put some bombs on his head. I then use a power shot to make it go off, dealing some massive damage. If you didn't know, a creature will take extra damage by the attack that wakes them up if they're sleeping, so putting bombs on their head and dealing your most powerful attack is the optimal way of waking them up. This has been known for a very long time. Once Rampompolo is done after a 20-minute fight, I head back and I'm now finally able to upgrade my armor. This is definitely going to help for the next fight, so I go ahead and do that, and I make some more potions to now finally fight Raidao. Raidao is probably one of my favorite fights in this game. I was a little bit worried going into the fight because I wasn't sure how this was going to work out with the bow, as I'm used to using the dual swords in order to dodge and weave between attacks. Now, of course, right when I started the fight, he runs away back to his lair. In other fights that I've fought him in, he usually flies off into the dunes right away, but this time he went back into his lair. I had tried to get in a couple of hits, but I missed, so I slid in closer and tried to mount an attack, but the mount of course failed again. So Raidao does a wide variety of attacks. He can jump and slam his tail and wing down onto the ground, similar to how Rathian fights, but he also uses a lot of lightning-based moves, such as his railgun head, where he will point his ears forward, and he can do either quick set at attacks, or he can do one power charge. Now, something that is interesting is that take note of his ears after he does his lightning attack, primarily his more longer charged up attacks rather than just a quick little zap. He will open up his ears and they will glow red. Eric points this out as this being a weakness. Now remember how I said in the Chotacabra fight where his tongue would hang out after using it and it would kind of glow red? The same thing happens with the Raidao. As he does a giant charge attack, his ears will be open and glow red, showing that if you hit him there, they will deal a lot more damage. So that's what I try to do, as when he does open up his ears like that, he's actually recharging himself and panting, so it makes him open for attack. I chase him into the dunes, where I use the same strategy as the other creatures and use it as a shield or to dodge out of the way quickly so I don't get hit by his bigger attacks. This is where I kind of miss being a dual sword user, as you could slide down off the dunes, jump up, and mount an attack. It's actually quite fun fighting him, which is why he's one of my favorite creatures. Something that I noticed that I didn't notice before is that when he does the larger lightning attacks in the sand dune area, it will actually turn into Fulgurite. I thought that was a neat attention to detail that they added, but now it was time to head to the main area, where I drop the grounding rod on his head to do massive damage. As he falls over to the floor, I get in a couple of hits, but then I go to charge up to do a power strike. I get one in, but then I try to do a second one, though he interrupts me with his roar attack. This is when the fight really amps up. This is the final showdown of Raidao, the thundering of the sand tide, me trying to dodge all of his attacks while he's giving me everything he has, from his massive lightning strikes to me using power shots when I can, rolling out of the way as he sweeps the ground. It is getting close. And then I see it. I see the opening to do the final strike.
You son of a